Hello, my fellow artists. Before I started releasing music, I was pretty oblivious to pretty much everything in the music industry. If you haven't seen last week's video I posted, you can check out more about my story there and hear how I decided to pivot into music after spending several years following a path that didn't fulfill me. But in any case, when I was talking to some of our artists at their early stages before they entered our program, I realized that I was not the only one who didn't know how being an artist actually works. And it's just so hard to know how someone actually goes from nothing to releasing original music and playing concerts and having fans and all that. So I thought I'd make a video for you guys to share what I've learned from my own journey and from working with my mentors and now partners, Ra, Ali, and Thomas. And really, there are so many things I've learned from them, and it's hard to put all of it into words, but I want to point out three things that really shifted the paradigm about the romanticized celebrity artist image I had in my mind that is pretty outdated at this point. The first thing is, a label will not save you from a penniless existence. Of course, there's different types of deals, but most labels nowadays essentially work like banks with small high interest loans. If you get a deal where they pay in advance, all costs will have to be recouped before you get your share. And in the worst case, you'll be indebted to your label if your music doesn't generate the success that you and the label hoped for. And this happens more often than not. With some deals, the label may provide you with a team of people to work with, but you won't be in creative control and you won't own your recordings. And aside from that, any reputable label is very unlikely to even consider you if you haven't shown that you are already connecting to an audience and you have strong musical material out there. And in my entrepreneurial mind, this brings up the question, if I'm able to attract my own audience and I can produce my own songs, why would I even give up ownership and control of my music journey? I'm not saying that all labels and all deals are bad though. I'll happily take a deal that benefits both me and the label and makes sense for my artistic goals. But what I mean is that if you want to live the life of an artist, release your music, play concerts, connect to an audience, you don't need anyone's permission but your own. And you just got to go out there and do it. Before I learned about the whole releasing process, I had this completely outdated idea in my mind where I felt like I needed to be picked. And if somebody discovered me, that would be the door to success. But the truth is, you have to pick yourself and put in the work. Which leads me to my next big lesson. What is your main work as an artist? It's your craft, especially if you're just starting out. There's loads of noise around the topic of music marketing, and it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that you can just make a couple of songs and they'll blow up if you just use the right marketing strategies. But the reality is, your songs need to be remarkable for strangers to be interested in them. Even if you may be able to attract people with ads and loads of non-music related organic content, if they don't love you for your music, chances are high they won't stick around for that. And this is brutal to hear when you're starting out, because I know from my own experience that what drove me and still drives me is my need for self-expression through music. And I've been a people pleaser for most of my life, and I really just needed that space to fully accept myself with whatever may come out of me in my creative process without being judgmental about it and trying to be better for the sake of other people. Because the whole reason why I didn't pursue music earlier was because I wasn't accepting myself. So in a way, I needed to drop any thoughts about a potential audience and just do it for myself in order to validate myself and get to a healthy place in terms of my sense of self-worth. So if that's where you're at, I totally get when you feel like you need that space to explore your craft completely without judgment, just for yourself. And in fact, if that's what you want to keep doing, there's absolutely nothing against that. Keep doing it. For me personally, it's just I just want to know where I can go in the career sense, and I have this urge to explore my full potential. And honestly, the more songs I wrote and the more I realized that I really love this and I love this to be my life and I love when other people enjoy my music too, the lighter and more playful I started to feel about my creative process, and the end result became more malleable. Like, my songs still carry loads of meaning to me, but they're not burdened by my ego anymore because I've written so many songs at this point, so I just don't feel as attached as I used to when I started when I just started out. So with that being said, your craft is the most important thing when it comes to your music journey. It's the base of how you build a career as an artist. This is what makes up your unique contribution that can touch and move other people. And it's what people are fascinated by when it comes to artists. At the core of your craft are your ears, your musicianship, your skills in terms of your singing, your working with the digital audio workstation, and your taste. Those are the things that will then define how your ideas translate into the songs and then the artistic world you create, that then in turn is appreciated by other people. You may have amazing musical ideas in your mind, but if you don't have the skills to translate your ideas into something that other people can hear the way you hear it, you're not doing those ideas justice. So honor your creative practice. And this brings me to my next point. Craft is a practice, and you get better at communicating your ideas and visions by simply doing it regularly and iterating in the aftermath. It doesn't matter if you're focused on songwriting, singing, producing, mixing, performing, or your visual art. It's all a practice. And this is interesting because coming from an athletic background, I've always known this to be true in sports or any physical discipline. But for some reason, songwriting and maybe art in general is often seen under a different paradigm. Like true art comes from this unknown place of inspiration and artistic talents are born out of nowhere. But I think there is a fallacy here because ideas are emergent in nature. Like, we can't make an idea actively. It arises in the mind and it can feel truly magical. So it may feel like it's not under your influence, but you as the practitioner absolutely have an influence on your creative output, both in quantity and in quality. And the best way to describe the way I see it is like you're tending to a garden. Your artistic world is a garden, and your song ideas are the seeds that can grow into plants and make up your garden. And it's your job to make sure your plants have the space and the right soil, and that you are using your skills and tools to give them what they need to facilitate their growth. And every garden can look different, like it can be more wild or more cultivated. You can pick the seeds you want to grow, and you can see which plants are symbiotic. You may want to keep some of the fruits your plants bear to yourself, and you may want to give others away for other people to enjoy them. You get my point. So the way I tend to my music is by showing up for my songwriting practice. And what that looks like is basically I simply make space for that to happen and for my mind to drift. But it can also look like journaling, which I usually do in the mornings, or it can look like me taking a walk, listening to new music to spark new inspiration. It can also look like me playing through the set I've created with my looper every single day, just doing the same thing every single day and getting playful with it. It can also look like me spending hours in front of my DAW, not going to the bathroom even though I'm about to burst. So I encourage you to think of your creative practice as this space in your life that you get to completely make your own and discover what emerges from within you. Those are the 3 paradigm shifting things that set me up in the best way possible when it comes to my music, and I hope hearing this is helpful to you too. Let me know in the comments below which of the 3 points stood out to you the most, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching.